Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Grand Vision Radio Show. So it's our very first episode. My name is Mike Neubauer. I'm the CEO of Grand Vision Capital Group. And the reason we're doing this show, we're going to do it every Wednesday night going forward at 7 p.m. And the reason for this show is kind of twofold. So we partner with people who want to put their money to work, and they probably have more money than they do time to go ahead and actively invest that money. So we partner with them to go and put that money to work with them, for them. And then we have the time, they have the money, we go ahead and do that. The other thing, though, is the reason for the show is kind of twofold. Is one, there's people out there that would like to invest with us, but they don't even know we exist. So we're coming out here to kind of just share what we know, share our knowledge, give you a chance to kind of watch in the background and see what it is we do, who we are, and kind of learn a little bit more about us. The second reason for the show is our minimum investment to get involved with us is $100,000. I definitely was at a place when I didn't have $100,000 at one point, and I'm sure there's many people out there who don't have $100,000 available. So that's the second reason for this show is if you don't have $100,000 to invest with us, we want to still be able to provide value for you. So we want to share any knowledge, answer any questions that we can, do whatever we can to help you either A, get to $100,000 so you can join us and partner with us, or B, go out and do this on your own so you can go ahead and build your own investing portfolio and kind of take it to the next level. So that's the reason for the show. We're going to go ahead and get started here. I'm going to bring on our Chief Operating Officer along with our Chief Investment Officer. We're going to be talking tonight. We have a guest coming on that reached out a little bit earlier, so we'll be answering questions. And if you have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the comments here, and we'll get those answered for you. So let's go ahead and get the show started. All righty. Here we are, fellas. How are you? Happy
What's going
Wednesday
on?
night.
Happy Wednesday.
So the first thing I was going to touch on, we did that post the other day. I did on my LinkedIn, but basically just kind of getting rid of the financial jargon and talking about normal everyday language for people of what investing really is. I think a lot of people don't understand what investing actually is. So I just kind of want to dive into that topic a little bit here and kind of share. I think most people think investing is like 8 to 10%, 401k. That's what they see investing as, where we see it as buying your time back. So I just kind of want to dive into that topic a little bit. I don't know. We'll take it from there and see where it goes. But I guess the biggest thing is what I brought up, and I think was a kind of a hit, was talking to my kids about it. They when you talk to kids, you kind of have to simplify it, and you have to simplify it. So with simplifying it for the kids, I realized that actually there's quite a few people that would like it simplified as well. So I think about it: $100 comes into my bank account. I send it out into the world. The purpose of that money going out into the world is hopefully it goes to work, send some money back home, when it comes back, and then reinvest it there. So I kind of will just start, maybe we'll start there and just talk about our kids. You guys all have kids, Keith, yours are a little bit older. Nate are similar. So what kind of investing, habits and kind of conversation and lingo are you using talking with your kids?
You haven't necessarily talked about investing. It's been just more savings, right? We develop the attitude of like we are going to save our dollars so they can be used for some other reason. So kind of in a way that is investing, but I mean, my kids do chores, empty the dishwasher, take out the garbage, kind of the basic things that a 9 or a 7-year-old might do. Uh, Knowing that every Sunday they're going to get $5. And so with that $5, my oldest daughter is a hoarder, right? She hoards collectibles, little toys, all this other stuff. She also hoards money. She does a good job of that. I mean, she just puts it in a piggy bank and sits it there. Whereas my other daughter has that, and then any mention of Target or the mall, she wants to get rid of it. And so, kind of conflicting ideologies there, where we have to think about uh, how we want to use our dollars. And so, it wasn't until, gosh, maybe 6, 8 months ago. Yeah, it was my 9-year-old's birthday, where we really talked about what I would call investing, like using those dollars to create you more dollars. And so she wanted to start a dog walking business. And so I explained to her, we got to buy paper. We got to go. She made these flyers. So we went to Office Max and made flyers. And she used her own money to do that. And we talked about how that's investing in your business, knowing that, hey, that $20 that you just used, that's going out to work for you. It's creating a marketing plan, and you're going to go out and you're going to walk dogs, which is going to create then income or revenue. and pretty soon you're going to have way more than the $20 you put in. And so that's investing into your business. Mike, I think you're investing into assets and things like that you've talked about to your kids a little bit different, but I'd say from an investing standpoint, that's really where what my kids understand is put dollars somewhere else where more money is going to come back later. That's true investing.
Yeah, when I talk to, Maddie's a little bit older, so I got one that's a little older than you, so we talk a little bit more about that. You know, she's at the age she wanted a cell phone. She got a cell phone, but no service, Wi-Fi only, you know, so then she's begging for service. And we basically said, hey, listen, the way this works is this is your first $20 commitment. You know, you're going to be an indentured servant to $20 a month as soon as you sign up for this. There's no going back. So before you commit hours of your life to go pay for this $20, take your money, invest your money somewhere that'll bring in $20 per month. And once that is passively, once your money is working to pay for things, go ahead and go buy it. But do not set up your life now where you have to go work for $20 every month, because there's going to be months when you don't want to work for it, you know? For us, that was kind of our first opportunity to teach, you know, go ahead and find money to send money back home and pay your bills. Don't go out and put forth your hours to do it. And hopefully my kids get the message. Hopefully they work on that. But, you know, for them, the whole idea is put in your hours like you have, you know, with Taylor, put in your hours to earn the money. But as soon as that money hits the pocket, send that money to work. You know, realize that the only reason you're currently trading hours for money is so in the future you no longer have to trade hours for money. You're now trading money for more money, and you have all the time in the world.
You know what? And you know what Taylor did? She walked like 6-7 dogs, and then she hired her friend down the street, and then they split the money. So now she doesn't have to walk as many dogs. She hired an employee. So
yeah, perfect.
Took some education from Dad though to explain how to get an employee and how to pay them and what's fair and that kind of thing. We got there. How about you, Keith?
Like what you guys did, but basic like there's a principle called it's like a 10-10-80 principle where your first 10% you're the church or whatever 10% and you spend 80. Our first little now we're kind of moving things. So Robert Kiyosaki and Mike, you're out like
oh man
instead create the cat thing. I've tried to understand that principle of like nothing but how can we afford creating the cash flow first, and then instead of just going and just.
Oh man,
are you not hearing me?
We're not hearing you, buddy.
Like
yeah,
every fourth word I can hear.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop you off and close your screen real quick. Alrighty, Nate, we got somebody here. You want to bring him on? Quick question.
You bet. I don't see him.
There we go. We got Christian. Can you hear us, Christian? Oh man, some technical difficulties all around.
Yeah.
All right, man. I'll head him back. All right. So the other thing, man, let's unless you got anything else on that topic, but otherwise we jump into one of these articles here while everybody's working on their audio. Jump into one of these articles that I saw. I'm gonna pull this up right here real quick. So here's like a perfect question, you know, that just as far as people trying to get some financial education out there. And of course, this is just the headline. And I know every time when you see smart asset, you're about to get sold something. So,
yep.
This is a headline, but we don't have to dive too deep into the article. But a lot of people right now are sitting on a ton of equity in their home. A lot of that equity could be put to work as investing, but they got low interest rates, and they're talking about, you know, a lot of people don't understand, if I sold my house and like this lady, I got $750,000 that I'm going to gain do I have to pay taxes on that? So I just want to touch on that real quick as we kind of look through here and see. But to answer this question, if you have this question, when you have a house that you have lived in for 2 of the last 5 years, we should preface, like always, as well. We're not CPAs, we're not attorneys. We're reading a news article, sharing our experience and knowledge with you. But if you lived in a house as your primary residence for 2 of the last 5 years, which is very typical for most people, then you don't pay any capital gain. So if you live in your house for 2 years, after that 24-month period from the day you move in and you sell 24 months or later after that, any of that gain is not applicable to you. Now, there is limits on how much of that gain, and there is specifics, but generally speaking, that's not going to be taxable income to you. So what I did when I first started in real estate, if anybody knows me personally, we moved all the time. So almost every 2 years, if you could imagine, like clockwork, we sold a house and we moved to another house exactly for this reason, was because we got that taxable gain here, or we did not have a taxable gain. We had a gain, but we didn't want to pay taxes. So that's why we went ahead and moved every 2 years. Was every time we had capital gains to realize that we're not going to be taxed, we cashed out that house, took it tax-free, moved, and bought another one. So we did that, man, probably 4 or 5 times. Was really kind of how we started to build our net worth, little by little. When I say little by little, I mean, it was $50,000 chunks at a time. We would buy a house, we would rehab it, get it livable, and then rehab it while we lived in the house, cleaning it up, making it nicer. Throughout that period, we'd be there for 2 years. After that 2-year period, then we would go ahead and sell the house, take all those gains, and go repeat that exact process. Now, I will warn you, at some point, your wife will say, I don't want to do this anymore. That's when you hit the headwind and you can't do it anymore because she's sick of living in a rehab house. And that's where we're at now. But, we did it, like I said, 4 or 5 times, which really turned a lot of income to then we took all that money where we're at now in our new house, and we took all the money that we had available besides what we had used for purchasing this house, and we send that out to invest. And then that money, just starts multiplying, sending money back year after year. So if you're just getting started, I think that's one of the best ways to get started is to live in a house for 2 years, fix it up, make it nice, and then go ahead and sell it. It's really an easy way to get some wealth. So I think, Keith, are you back now, buddy? Your audio working well?
Yeah, I hope this works.
It's a lot better. You've done that too, right? Have you stayed in house and then moved? And
I did the exact same thing you mentioned. Just we call it like we're household residents, tax-free gains that we could roll investments. So yeah, and I think the first $1 on in 2 years into the next.
We're gonna have to buy Keith the microphone, man.
I think I have one actually.
It's not working. I don't know why, but you're cutting out real bad.
Man, that sucks. Talking right now, is it still cutting out?
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what's going on with this thing.
All right, let's try Christian, see if he figured out his. I'll shoot him a message real quick here. Let's see. Any luck, Christian? Can you hear us this time, buddy? I'm going to shoot him a message real quick, see if he can hear us. These technical difficulties are killing us today, Nate.
Right. This is rough. I think it's because you and I are just constantly on our computers recording videos and
yeah, how about it, man?
I think our computers are just used to it. And then Keith's like, oh, what's happening? You're trying to record something? Get out of here.
Yeah, we're staring at a computer every day, all day, man.
I think one thing I'd say, since we are live and there are people listening, what's your belief on taking equity in the home while you still live in it and investing with those dollars?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, because that's the other way to do it. At some point, like I said, at some point your wife is done with the move all the time. And honestly, it does wear on you. It is not something fun to do. I mean, it is a full-time job. So, I mean, I like the idea. I would tell everybody, I shouldn't say that. I would tell everybody because they're going to take it as my direct advice. If it were me and I was telling myself this, I would tell myself to always have a home equity line of credit on the home to access that equity. The problem is you got to know that for sure that you have the discipline not to use that equity line for something that is not investing. That's where people get in trouble. They go buy a brand new car using the equity line, and all of a sudden the equity line is maxed out. That car depreciates to nothing, and now they just have $50,000 that's gone they didn't see. But an equity line, yeah, a line of credit from the bank on your house to access that equity,
If
95%
needed.
of yeah, but setting it up, yeah, exactly. Setting it up initially, 95% of the time, the bank will do it for free. They won't even charge you. If they do charge you, they might charge an appraisal fee of $400 or something. So there's almost no downside to doing it, to have it set up. You're going to pay adjustable rate, typically. So right now they're high, but if they go higher, it goes higher. But if they go lower, that rate will also go lower with you. And the idea is just to have it there, so you can pull cash out as soon as you need it. So you don't go buy something silly, but if an investment opportunity comes along, you have that cash available, where if it's tied up in equity and an investment opportunity comes along, you may not have the time to go ahead and turn that equity into cash to make the investment. So it's always advisable, for me, I think you're the same way, to have access to cash. Even if you don't use it, you just want to be able to access it, and that's really how you set yourself up for the investing rather than getting it all locked up.
Yeah, I think it's a different or not as often used strategy from like an emergency fund standpoint, right? You go out to the most financial firms, anybody that's a financial advisor is going to say, hey, you need to have an emergency fund. You need to have a pocket of money sitting there for the what if. And so people will hold money in a savings account that earns nothing, right? To do that versus not keeping as much as you're saving, having those dollars out there working for you. But then you have an equity line of credit for the what if. You have that like credit card that sits at a zero balance and never gets used for the what if an absolute emergency happens. But those are just strategies to have they're essentially untapped lines of credit, right? Whether it's consumer credit with a credit card or it's residential credit with the HELOC. Having that out there as that's your what if type dollars, I believe is just a much better strategy than actually holding cash in a bank account being unused. Like we always talk about, those dollars should be out there working for you. Leave the what if to lines of credit.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Because the problem is, I've been in that same boat. When I did the emergency fund, you got cash sitting there, and there's just no way to know like what makes something an emergency. At what point do you say, all right, this is
Also
an
fair.
emergency, I'm going to pull the money? Because leading up into that moment where you say, I'm going to have to pull this cash out, it's scary as can be. And you figure out a way before you ever touch that cash anyways. So typically that emergency fund is there for the what ifs, but they never come, which I totally agree. Then if you have access to a credit line, you can get, my credit cards are $30,000 credit limit. I mean, what kind of emergency am I going to have that 30 grand can't cover? Like if that's the case, so I like to have a little bit of cushion of cash just so I don't have to worry about like, did I overdraft my account? You definitely want to have enough in there, but I wouldn't call that emergency. That's just day-to-day living, comfortability.
Yeah.
But I totally agree with you. Access to cash is the emergency fund, in my opinion, not cash actually sitting in the bank, because that cash is getting eaten away by inflation, which we talk about all the time. And that equity line sitting there, that equity is kind of getting eaten away by inflation, but at least you're getting appreciation and that equity is growing a little bit and you have it if you need it. So,
Yep.
I think I totally agree. The access to cash is definitely the most important part.
For sure.
So let's try our buddy here again. See what he's got going on. If his
Yeah, I was hoping we were going to
audio's
get a
any
good
better.
question out of Christian.
Yeah, I don't know where he must be having some audio issues.
You
Let's
can
try
me
again, Keith.
I went to the cell phone, and the Beats earpiece. So, how's this work?
Gotcha. It's decent. I think you got some bad Wi-Fi, buddy. I think you need to call Comcast, tell them, hey, get out here ASAP.
For what I'm paying for Comcast, it should be perfection.
How about it? All right, it looks like Christian's all good here. I'm gonna bring him on. Join us real quick. This is my guy. I told him, he asked me a question via text. I said, hey, man, jump on this call with us because I think this is going to be a good question for Keith and I. What's up, buddy?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you perfect now, man. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, Nate, this is our friend Keith and I know Charlie. This is his son, Christian. So I know you don't know him, but they live out in Ohio, and his dad told him to reach out to me. I told him jump on here so Keith and I and you could, go ahead and answer his question. All right, buddy.
Nice.
Hey, yeah, guys, how's it going? My name is Christian, like he said, and currently we do a lot of real estate investing as a family business, but things have gotten a little difficult recently, and I've been considering the route of joining the fire department, Columbus Fire Department, hopefully, and investing as well. And I didn't know what your guys' experience was like with investing while firefighting. So I was curious.
Sounds good. What does life look like right now? Are you a firefighter right now as well, or you're not at all?
No experience. My younger brother, he was a firefighter locally, and then he just recently tested on to Columbus, so he's almost done with the academy.
Okay. Very cool. How old are you?
I'm 26.
Awesome, man. First question
What are
I
you
would
doing
have
each day now? Yeah, I would ask just what are you doing now?
We have some short-term rentals. We have like 14, and then we flip homes, and we've gotten into contracting, remodeling recently.
Okay.
What brings you to the fire service? What sparks that interest? Is it something talking to your brother that you think you'd absolutely love, or is it more for the paycheck, or what's driving you kind of to think about that course?
I guess recently we've been seeing a downturn in the short-term rental, and just flipping as well has been rather slow, which I think is kind of a national thing. But just like the idea of a consistent paycheck with still some freedom to, it seems in my head at least, that some freedom to work in addition to the job, I guess.
Yeah. So I'll share my opinion, man. I was in your exact boat. But to be totally fair, I also loved the fire service. That was my dream, to be a firefighter. It was never my dream to be a real estate investor. That happened to be a side dream once I realized I could do it. So I'll tell you, from my point of view, there is no better job out there for what you just said, as far as a consistent paycheck, doing something that is a blast. I mean, you're hanging out in a firehouse with, cool guys, having fun every day. So it's a lot of fun. So if that's the route, I don't think there's any other profession that is better. You got to be able to handle things under pressure. You got to be able to handle, seeing some crazy stuff that most people, would never sleep again if they saw. But if you're that type of person, that stuff doesn't really bother you. If that's the case, potentially could be. I'm curious to hear Keith. Keith's about to retire. He was a firefighter for a long time. So I'm curious to hear his point of view. But the one thing I will caution you on is your business will never grow to the level that it could once you become a firefighter. Once you become a firefighter, you are distracted down two routes. I know things are tough right now, but if you figure out how to do things right now when they're tough, you will explode in the business that you're doing right now, because when things get easy, you'll already know how to do it when things are tough, and you will make decisions and do things differently with your back against the wall than you will if you have a paycheck coming from the firehouse and you don't really have to try that hard in the business. So you're definitely not going to have, I can tell you for me, my business when I left the fire service exploded. I mean, beyond wildest dreams of what I was capable of, and I never could have done it if I was still at the fire service when I was there. Now, when I was there, I loved it. I had a blast. It was a lot of fun. I called it the golden handcuffs because it was a great paycheck. It was so much fun. I got to do things that I loved. It was my childhood dream. But at the same point, I never realized while I was there how much it held me back from what I was truly capable of doing in the real estate world.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I never really thought of it as like golden handcuffs. I think it's a great job. I've loved every second of it. It does keep you away from your family a lot of times. You're working. When you're working, you're working. So kids' birthdays, Christmas, New Year's, especially when you're new, you can't have those days off and you're going to miss those days. So you have to know going in. But as far as being in real estate, like I know you guys are, it is like the perfect job because you have that baseline. It's a decent salary. It's got really good benefits, and it gives you plenty of time to do side jobs. I was a real estate appraiser for 20 some years while I was a firefighter. I flipped houses. I did all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I would say for sure you're going to be a little bit distracted, like Mike said. And it's very easy maybe not to give 100% to the business you're in because you have that side job that gives you that comfortability. So yeah, I would agree with everything Mike said on that. But yeah, it is a great job. You'll have plenty time to devote to the business, for sure.
Yeah, it's
What other thoughts you have? Yeah, man. Share your opinions, your thoughts you got going on through your head.
You talking to me?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
I've always thought about it a little bit. My twin actually, he's always wanted to be a firefighter, but kind of he went to a Bible Institute in Hungary and he came back. The family business was kind of real busy, so he jumped back into it. So he's real gung ho, and I'm kind of like in a way following the coattails, but I do like the idea of it. My father-in-law is a fireman as well, so it's I'm kind of surrounded by it, I guess. But yeah, I do think it would be a great job and does offer a lot of opportunities. But like you said, it would slow the business growth down, but would also offer a little bit of security. But
yeah, I mean, it's a 50-50, man. I had an accident that forced me to leave. Otherwise, I probably would have never left. But it is 100% the golden handcuffs that you are entering. You just got to decide, I'm very much, my personality is I want to grow. I want to keep pushing. As soon as I figure something out, I want to learn something more and keep pushing and growing. You are limited in that realm. You'll be the probie. You'll be the new guy. You'll be the young kid for many years before you finally get to that next level. And even that next level, 5 years in, 10 years in, you start getting promoted. You're still very limited. So if you have a mindset where you like to grow, you like to be busy, you like to work and see the outcome, being something better because you put in the effort, like in the business, you can go and work harder and you're going to have more income. You can work harder and grow the business. In the fire service, you're losing some of that. So some of that is more on kind of the soul side than it is the financial side, is that running a business and being successful outside of the fire service, you're probably going to feel a little bit bored at the firehouse. And if you're not bored, you're going to be running calls like crazy, and then you'll be exhausted the next day. So that's kind of the two routes. So I would tell you, man, I absolutely love being a fireman. But man, dude, I would totally caution you that if you have a business up and running right now, and that's truly, what you're good at and you have the capability, then I would caution you to reconsider that thought and say, man, maybe I could be, running this business at a bigger level. Maybe I could dream bigger here. One thing I tell you, man, have you read the book 2X, 10X is, what is it? 10X is easier than 2X. Have you read that book?
I've not.
I would suggest reading that book. You don't have to make a decision, of course, about the firehouse today. So I would go ahead and I would read that book and think about it with your business in mind. So here's the premise. To 10X your business would be very difficult. There's only a couple ways that you could ever 10X your business. And when I say 10X, it's 10X on the financial side, 10X on the amount of hours that you have to work. So that'd be a 10X reduction divided by 10, I guess you call it. But to be able to do that, there's only a couple ways you'll ever be able to do that. To 2X your business, there's a million strategies that you could use. You could buy another short-term rental. You could do some more excavating that I know you guys do. You could pick up a long-term rental. There's a million ways to slowly grow a little bit. There's only going to be one or two ways that your brain could come up with if you said, how would I 10X this tomorrow? And the point isn't necessarily to 10X it, but it's to get you to think in that growth mindset of, if I wanted to 10X this thing, even with it being a struggle right now, what do I need to do? Because if you start implementing those decisions and those pathways today, to think of, if I 10X this, you may not 10X it, but your life will get very easy and the growth and stability of your company will be, super sound by implementing those strategies. So I would just consider, don't go to the firehouse just because it's hard right now in the business. Go to the firehouse because you love being a fireman and you want the benefits of both. I think that's kind of what I would say, is just don't do it for the wrong reasons. But if you do love it, there's probably not a better job in the world, in my opinion. Yeah.
And to piggyback on that, Mike, I think Michael know this, like, guys who get in it just because it's like, well, guys would be in it just for like, well, I'm here for the insurance, but my other job is really what I'm passionate about. They'll sniff that out a mile away, because firemen are passionate about being firemen. So if you're not really into the job and want to do that job, you're going to have a rough go at it. you know what I'm saying, Mike? You know how we worked with guys that are like, I'm just here for the insurance. I lay tile on the side. That's my real job.
Yeah.
I'm crushing it in tile. I'm crushing it in home building. Well, the guys sniff that out and you have a rough time. So yeah, you got to kind of really love the job.
Yeah, 100%, man. All right, you got anything else, Christian, for us?
No, I appreciate the input. Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm just doing it because of a cop out. I like the idea of the job. Definitely see my brother in it. See a lot of the benefits of it and the camaraderie and the kind of like the team that you get to build and be a part of. Not build necessarily, but the team you get to be a part of, and just that kind of appeals to me as well. It's not like a complete out. It's just like I guess in a way I'm just going to test anyway because who knows if I'm going to pass or not. So we'll just see what happens.
Yeah, you don't have to make the decision today. There's no doubt, man. When I was your age,
go do some ride time if he's in there.
Yeah, have you done any ride time with your brother?
I have not. I could probably go do some ride time with my father-in-law. He works nearby.
Yeah. There you go. That's
yeah,
a
it'd be a good
know.
opportunity for you.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt, man. When I was your age, I loved it even more than when I left. You know, when you're young and you don't need sleep at night and you get to do that, you know, there's just no better job. Like I said, it's like being at a fraternity, but also saving lives, running around. It's a lot of fun. So, you know, at your age, for sure, it's a lot of fun. Just remember that always in the back of your head. You know, it's not forever. So take the test, even if you get hired. You know, just remember you don't have to stay there for 30 years if you decide, hey, man, I did my time. It was a good run, because it's one of the few professions that still offers the pension. And the pension has always and will always be, the purpose is to keep people working in the same profession for a long time so they don't have turnover. So it's very hard to walk away when they're dangling a pension in front of you. So just remember that, you know, even if you say yes to it, you don't have to stick with it forever.
Awesome. Thank you.
So, all right, buddy. Thanks for hopping out. We'll see ya.
Yeah.
Man, dude, to be young and making decisions like that again.
How about it?
Yeah, man, I remember that though.
Whew. They're already crushing in real estate. That's who we're kind of lenders to them. You know, a lot of times with Charlie and his boys, they're awesome. They do an awesome job, man. So, yeah.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It's so tough. I know you said like you've never heard of that. I go back and forth with that golden handcuffs. I think it's any profession. You know, I think Nate, you know, could relate even in he worked at the bank for a while and then worked as financial advisor. It's like you get comfortable, life starts to get easy, money starts to get good, and it's like, man, dude, I really want to pull the trigger on leaving this thing that I finally built, but I don't know. I can say 100% now doing what we're doing is way more fun. And maybe now when I was 20, you know, I love going into burning buildings and doing that, but doing what we're doing now and having no limit on what we can do, it just fires me up every day. That was probably the biggest thing at Firehouse was there was always a limit. There's no chance of reaching my true potential at the Firehouse. There's just no way I was ever going to do it. So I had to do it outside the Firehouse.
Yeah. I like the freedom. Yeah. I want the freedom to be able to just do what you want to do, go where you want to go. And the Firehouse is, you know, my son's considering being a fireman too. And I'm kind of torn because it was good to me. I loved it. But also I'm like thinking you're tied to a region, right? If you start a fire department somewhere, you're kind of tied there. If it's in Illinois, you're stuck. Absent quitting and starting over again. And that just kind of sucks. So yeah, it's a tough
100%,
call.
Man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like the Firehouse is just like a national bank where it's like, oh yeah, I want to go live here now, and then you just transfer to a different location.
Yeah.
Within the United States, but work for the same company. It's not like the Firehouse is like that. So I don't know what that transfer. It's kind of like the transfer portal in college football. I don't know what it's like, but
yeah,
I gotta imagine that it's not as easy as one might think.
And they're, you know, his Charlie and his boys were crushing it, and now, you know, we're leaving the era of easy money, and now it's like, hey man, it's getting tough. So I got to start looking at other things. It's like, man, that's when you should probably dig in, you know, and get market share, you know. So yeah, like what you were saying, Mike, if you can make it through the tough times, when it gets easy, man, it's easy.
Yeah. So. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's kind of like, it's a perfect, I I think everybody falls in that boat, right? You're growing up, you're trying to make a decision. What do I want life to look like going forward? And it's really that decision of business owner versus employee, no
Yeah.
matter what do I put that, do I trust my boss to keep my paycheck, or do I trust me to keep my paycheck coming? And that's really what it comes down to. And that is not, man, I'll tell you, that is 100%. When I left the firehouse, I mean, dude, I had the money to leave. It was okay. I was going to make it, but not seeing a paycheck hit the bank account every 2 weeks is very difficult to get used to. I mean, that is that's a different thing. The paychecks are much larger now, but they're much more infrequent. And they're, that time period when you're waiting for that payday is like, man, dude, is this thing ever coming? Like, whew, this has been a while.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets very comfortable. Like becomes your little blanket, your security blanket for sure.
Yeah. Makes it even harder when it's a passion, right? Like you guys had a passion to be a firefighter. And so knowing that while you're following a passion,
fun.
you're also dedicating your time.
Yeah.
You become an employee, right, of the state. So it's like, it's kind of, it's a balancing act, because it's not like you can go out and start your own firehouse, right? You can't start your own fire department business where it's like you can generate more and more income the more calls you go on or anything like that. I mean, it's just a tough business. I mean, there's I can't think of another analogy to say, hey, this is, you're following your passion, and the passion just happens to lie with a W-2 state employee job.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, man, when you look at it, it's really just getting in touch with yourself personally. Like, truly, what kind of person are you cut out to be? And I think a lot of times people like build up this entrepreneurial business owner. Like, dude, it is not easy to run a business at all. It is hard. And dude, your brain never shuts off. You never get a break. You never get to stop thinking about it, because it's all falls on you. It is very difficult, and I think a lot of people, for some reason, build that up, like this hustle and grind culture, running a business. Like, at the same point, as much as my soul needs to run a business so that I can keep growing and I don't have any limits, only limits are put on me by myself. As much as my soul needs that, there is no doubt that there's souls that do not need that. And they just want to live a happy life. And I don't want to say easier, because waking up every morning and going to work, Monday through Friday, whether you work from home or not, like, that's not any easier. We work with a lot of physicians. That is by no way an easy job, but that's some people's, that's where their heart and soul needs to go. And I think that's really what it boils down to, is like, just have a look in the mirror and just say, do I truly want to go start my own business? Do I truly want to, be an employee? Do I truly want, like Christian was talking about, do I truly want to be an employee, but I still like dabbling in the real estate, as a cool side gig? Like, for me, forever, real estate was a hobby that paid really well. Like, I could have been playing checkers, I guess, as a hobby, but for some reason I enjoy doing houses, and luckily houses pay really well. So my side gig or my hobby was very profitable and allowed me to leave the fire service. But I think, there's just so much, really, when you break it down, so much outside influence and cultural influence that pushes you sometimes to go against what your soul is really saying, this is what's right for me. And the world is saying, nah, don't do that. Your parents tell you, do it, don't do it. And you just, there's only so much you can do to fight before you give up and say, oh, I guess I'll just do what I was told,
Yeah. Not to go deep into like psychology or anything, but I think all three of us can agree that really, if you're going to be a business owner, if you really truly have a passion to run a business or partner like the three of us do in a bigger business, you really have to trust yourself. I honestly think it comes down to self-trust. I don't know if that's a phrase, but like, for you to work a W-2 job, you're putting your trust and what you do into another corporation. Whereas the three of us, we just trust each other, but also we independently trust ourselves to know, like, if we work hard, we can do this. And I feel like, Mike, to your point earlier, like, people, it's not cut out for everyone. A lot of people don't have self-trust in that they can be successful. They don't believe that they could be successful if they followed something that they really enjoy and made a business out of it. It's the people who do trust themselves. And then, honestly, people who have the confidence in themselves. That's where I think business really takes off, is having self-trust and the self-confidence. What do you guys think?
Yeah, man, I totally agree. So that's the one thing. I mean, the story, Nate. Well, you interviewed me for your podcast when we did the Doctors and Dollars show. But for me, when I started in real estate, my dad and I went to a conference and they sold us this education, and you could buy packages of whatever it was. We maxed out our credit cards and bought $40,000 of real estate education courses. And the reason for that was just like you said, was we trusted ourselves, but we needed something to motivate us to make it happen, you know? So we dropped that 40, because if we drop 5 grand, you know, 2,500 a piece, it's like, you know, a year goes by, like, that didn't work. You know, I'll go pick up an overtime shift and cover the 2,500, and it was a good try. You drop 40 grand, your wife finds out you dropped 40 grand on some guy selling real estate education. Like, there's no turning back. Success is inevitable because there is no other option at that point, you know? Actually, Will Smith does a YouTube video. I don't know where they clipped it from, but I saw it. But he talks about that, and he said, I will always win because I only have plan A. He's like, my options are plan A or die. So when I set myself up to go do something, I am fully committed. I don't even consider a plan B because there is no option for stopping. I have to succeed on plan A. And I think that ties a lot to like the kind of that principle that 10x is easier than 2x, is you set yourself up where you don't have a choice. This is the only way to make this successful, you know?
That's called burning the bridges.
Yeah.
Or burning the boats, right?
Burning the boat.
But that's hard to light
Yeah.
that match, man. It's hard to walk over to that bridge and light it up and walk away. You know, I mean,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, stuff. And I think colleges, like everyone is prepared and bred to go to college, get the 4-year degree, to be an employee somewhere. Like that's just the path. And if you go off of that path, people look at you like you're weird. Like, what are you doing? You know, you're supposed to just go get a good job and then, you know, get that W-2 wage. That's it. And I find that like trying to teach my kids and breaking out of that, like, hey, why don't you just go buy a 4-unit with 5% down as an FHA loan and just start learning how to manage people and manage rental properties. So it's just like, it just kind of, it's just not the norm. You know what I mean?
yeah, 100%. The biggest thing for me, man, is my kids, like, you know, just trying, they're too young for me to know how it's going to go, but you just see in the real world people that understand money and how to manage money, and then you see people that don't. And life, at the end of the day, same thing. It's not, there's no judgment, but life is harder when you don't know how to manage money. You know, we talk about it all the time. Money just amplifies whatever you have going on. So when you don't know how to manage money, the more money you get, the more you don't know how to manage more money. And that snowball just keeps going and it gets out of control. And you find out, like, I'm making a ton of money now, but I'm working nonstop. I have nothing to show for it. I work 60 hours a week, you know, and it really started back at 18 years old, just not quite understanding how to manage money, how money works in the world, how you can send it out to work for you and invest, you know, your different choices, like you talk with college. You know, it really just is, it's that financial education piece that people don't understand until it's too late. The first time you learn financial education is when you become an adult and you have money and you start spending it and you go, oh, this is how this thing works.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
financial. I mean, we could definitely shift the topic to financial literacy. I mean, we could probably spend an hour on that. But I mean, I just talked to a doctor this morning that admitted they were 40 years old, had been a doctor for over almost 8 years before they truly learned financial literacy and investing. And they talked about getting into real estate and how, like, they watched some YouTube videos and then I think it was a class of some kind, not like you did, Mike, where it's like, go out and do this, but it was just more of an educational, like, hey, other people are doing this if you're curious. And they were just blown away. Like, wow, you can, it's not just wake up, go to work from 9 to 5 and then come home. Like, that's not how a lot of the world operates. That's crazy. And so, and that's a very highly educated physician at 40 years old with a few kids telling me that this morning, that they were just blown away by all the financial things that you could do. And so, I mean, that's just one small sector, one, I don't know, market, you know, of the economy that doesn't have that financial literacy. And these are some of the smartest people in the country. And so imagine some of the people that are well below that from a general literacy standpoint. The idea of having financial literacy is just so much less. And it's unfortunate because that's financial literacy, even if you don't have $1 million a year, can absolutely change your world if you know how to handle money.
Yeah, dude. There's a huge, misconception in our country that the people who make a lot of money also know how to manage that money. And that's just not true. A lot of times the people that make the most money, they can get away with all the mistakes that they make because they have enough money to cover the mistakes. But the financial education and literacy really does not correlate to the amount of money you make. Maybe you can hire people to help you manage your money or something to make better choices. But I mean, Nate, you worked in the industry. You know that the people that work in that industry aren't always the most financially educated as well. They're educated by their employer and told what they're supposed to know about finances, not the truth about finances overall in the
Correct.
world, told about what makes the most commission for the broker, and that's the financial education they get.
Or even worse, someone who has the same title as me being in my mid 30s, and I have the same title as a 23-year-old who just graduated from college and happened to pass a couple investment classes, and all of a sudden they're a financial advisor and they're thrown out into the world to start talking to people that have a few $1 million in the bank, and they're like, hey, educate this multimillionaire on what they should be doing. It's like, this person's 23 years old. They were getting allowance 5 years ago. They don't know. Like, it's crazy to me.
Well, I mean, if you look at like stock market, they're just taught to put you in a certain mutual fund, and they just know like stock market always goes like this, right? You have like this too, but it generally tracks upward. So like you can throw a dart at a dartboard and you're probably going to be right.
Mm-hmm.
So, just go do that. Like any idiot can do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like America found out, 8 to 10% is enough to keep people happy. So you just build the system to return average 8 to 10%, and then nobody complains. Everybody follows the system. Everybody keeps pouring money into the 401k that's managed by the broker. There's enough middlemen that they get to make enough money and do the same thing. And, the people on the top are happy to do it, and they're going into the private equity side and selling other private equities in an IPO to the public side and getting 20x, 30x multiples, cashing out, going and repeating the cycle. And they know that the 95% of America has no clue how to get in on the private equity side. They only know how to get the public equity side, and they bank on that because the public equity side is what makes the rich people rich.
Yeah. And you know why everyone's happy with 8 to 10%, Mike? Because that's what the market has always done. So people just expect it. Well, every now and then it's negative, but on average it's 8 to 10% for the last 70 years. So like, why not put your money in there? Like, that's just the norm. Like if starting after the Great Depression, if the market was 25% all the time, people would just expect 25%. Like, that's just how it is. And so I truly feel like there's been backdoor behind the curtain working of like, hey, let's just give these people 8 to 10%, just enough to make them feel good. And let's just do that consistently, over if you look at any 40-year time frame, if you can average it out to 8 to 10%, people are going to feel like it's pretty comfortable, and they'll continue to pour billions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because I totally agree with you. I just think that a lot of people would say, conspiracy, backdoor stuff, which it is, but I feel like it's not set up. It's not as intentional as that, but it always plays its way out exactly like you're saying, because they do know that. So, the private equity side, IPOing, before, if you look at when Warren Buffett started buying value companies on the stock market, he wasn't buying 30 and 40x multiples. That's not a valuable company. But over time, technology has gotten better. Life has gotten easier. Profits have grown. And like you said, Nate, they just keep pushing now the multiple. So if they were happy at let's say a 5x multiple, an investor starts on private equity side, they go IPO and they 5x their money. The public's willing to pay 5x because they're going to make, good money. And all of a sudden, 30 years later, that 5x multiple started returning 25%, like you said, then everybody be happy with 25%. And that's what it would be. But we all know that the people that are on the wealthy side that got in on the private equity, once they start going, oh, the public equity can return 25%, well, now they just start raising the price of the shares. Now when you go IPO, Morgan Stanley looks at it and says, hey, people are willing to pay 20, 30x. Let's price this thing at $100 a share instead of 40. And they go, yeah, that sounds good to me. And it gets it right back to that 8 to 10%, like you said. And, everybody just keeps going. And It just is the way we've always done it. And little by little, those numbers keep increasing. And people say, you know, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And it's really just because the rich know how to keep getting richer and the poor don't do anything about it. They just keep buying the stuff and, you know, staying within the system instead of trying to make that change.
See, great example. You are behind the conspiracy. You are in on it. You know what it is.
Yeah, I did. I would believe it was a conspiracy if it wasn't hiding in plain sight. You know what I mean? Like the
Good
research
point.
we do, we say, like we use that Tiger 21 Club, you know, as a wealth club. They publish their investments. They publish how their members allocate their assets. There's on YouTube. There is super wealthy people, multi-millionaires, billionaires sometimes, that are sharing their story. They're getting interviewed. They're sharing their story. They're talking about how they made their money, how to, you know, grow it, how they invest. People watch the show and then they turn on Netflix and go on about their day and don't make any changes, you know? I mean, and then they want to say that it's a conspiracy. And it's like, well, it's not a conspiracy. You're just not doing what that guy said he did to get rich, you know?
Yeah, I want to get Keith's thought on this. My last thought is the reason behind that, and I love your analogy of somebody sitting around just watching this YouTube video on their phone about, you know, a multi-millionaire or a billionaire talking about how they got rich and how maybe 17 to 19% of their actual portfolio is in public equities. And then they'll close their phone, they'll turn on Netflix, and they'll just be like, well, you know, my 401k calculator said that if I keep putting in 8% every year and my employer matches it, I'm going to have over $1 million by the time I retired. I could definitely retire with $1 million. So I'm doing just fine.
Yeah.
I think that's the myth or the legend that people are told, especially when they go into the corporate world, that's like, hey, just pump a bunch of money into your 401k. We're going to take care of you as long as you're consistent. Big believers in dollar cost averaging and all those types of things. You're going to be just fine. And I don't know.
I mean, you learn firsthand, right? Your employer said, "Your family. We treat you like family. We take care of you. I love you like my son until I don't." And then it's just a number, you know, It's just like, dude, it's just unbelievable, you know?
Nate, it's hilarious you said that because that is the exact speech I got in 1997 from our financial advisor with our 457k plan.
Yep.
Almost, you said it to the T.
Yep.
And it did not work out like that. It just didn't. It didn't take into account 2000 with the 50% drop in the stock market, in 2008 another 50% haircut that they didn't do anything about. They just let everything go to hell. It was like, oh man, it's funny. It's just hilarious. Like that was the exact speech I got.
Yeah,
just don't look at it. We're just gonna let it.
Yeah, in '97, you were what, late 20s, early 30s? How old were you then?
Yeah,
right around there.
25.
They probably also told you, hey, here's the type of allocation, 90-10. You know, right? Because you're in your late 20s. You 90% equities, 10% bonds. And then we're going to go 80-20. And as you get a little bit older, then we're going to go 70-30. And eventually you're going to get close to retirement, Keith, and we should probably be 50-50 just from a conservation standpoint. We're trying to maintain, you know, capital in this account.
I'm not joking. I was in like 2 ETFs or 2 mutual funds, and I swear they all own the same stocks because I didn't even bother to look at what those mutual funds invested in. But if you look at most mutual funds, a lot of them, it's like Apple, Facebook, Google. Then the other one's like, well, we have Google, Facebook, Apple. You know, it's like Microsoft. It's like it's different percentages, but they're all investing in the same stuff. It's like, man, am I really that diversified? And you know, I didn't know any better. I was like, yeah, okay, I put money into this, and I'll have $1 million. Not so much.
Yeah, but if you would have retired in 1997, that $1 million would have felt great. But now it's 2023 when you're retiring. And $1 million just doesn't get you very far. So
it doesn't get you far. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't tell you that in 1987.
Yeah, and they don't tell you. I mean, you're throwing your money in jail until, you know, I can at least take mine out a little bit early, or convert it, you know, but you're locking your money up. You can't access that money. You got to pay penalties and fees. And I just, not that it's 100% bad. I'm not saying
no
401ks are bad or anything like that. You do get some tax benefits and all that stuff, but it's just, you have very little control, and it just locks up your money, puts it in jail. And I think, you know, the only time I really got any feedback from any buddy who was advising me is when I said I'm going to move my money elsewhere. Then they're on the phone calling you like, please don't move your money. We want our commission. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you talked about, Nate, the 70-30, 90-10, 70-30, 50-50. And like we went through a couple articles on here, but the articles every day now are the people that want to retire. They switched from that 90-10, 70-30, 50-50. They went to bonds because that was a safe asset. And then the bonds tanked. The bonds used to pay 0%, 1%, and now they pay 5 or 6, which means all the bond crap that they bought 3 years ago is worthless almost. I mean, it just has gone down so much that it's taken a haircut, just like the stock market takes a haircut, during the crisis. And it's like these people thought so much, this is a safe way to go. I'm prepped. I'm ready for retirement. It's a bond. It's super safe. And then all of a sudden they find out interest rates went through the roof. Bonds are way more valuable at 5% than they were at 0%. So now nobody wants your bonds and they're worth nothing. You can't retire. It doesn't matter what the market's doing. Everything has that roller coaster. If you don't know, if you're on the public equity side and you don't really understand, what you're doing with the money.
Yeah. I think the one big thing when it comes to investing, at least traditional investing, let's call it that, with 401ks, IRAs, things like that. The one thing that you cannot help is the day that you were born, right? You have no control over the day you were born because that kind of dictates when you're going to retire. Unless you become very successful, you can retire earlier. But like, if you get what I'm trying to say, like the time frame in which you're born kind of dictates the time when you're going to retire, and the market doesn't give a crap when you're going to retire. So it just keeps doing what it's going to do. And so you have to, that's why financial literacy, again, going back to that topic, it's so important in your 20s and your 30s to understand how the money game works, because you can't control when you were born. And so you have no idea what life's going to look like in your 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. So you just have to make really good financial decisions when you're young.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we talk about all the time, man, is that why wait for retirement? Because just like you said, you don't get to decide what the market's going to do when you're 60 years old. You don't get to decide what life looks like. The whole idea of retirement is just unbelievable. I met, I listened to that interview that you did, Nate, with Dr. John Ludlow, and he was a urologist, worked his career. And now what do you say? He works 5 days a month or something, because he loves the job. He still gets to, have basically a retired life, but he just kind of transitions slowly out of it, and you get to keep working and stay young by working, but you don't want to work 60 hours a week anymore. I mean, really, that's the goal and in a perfect world, when you have young kids, you won't be working 60 hours a week. By that time, hopefully you're down to 30, 40 hours a week, so you get time with your family. But really, that's the goal, is if you got to work at, your 20s, 50, 60 hours a week, hopefully as you hit your 30s, your 40s, you have enough money now that is out working for you that you're only working 30 hours a week. And then at some point when you hit, 60 years old, maybe be like Dr. John and you're working 5 days a month now at this point. And maybe next year he'll drop to 4 days a month. But you slowly, step out of it rather than waiting for like this one magical day that you just stop working. I mean, it's just crazy to me.
I think Keith can attest to it. Like, your kids just don't get younger. I think that's my biggest drive of why I've made all the changes that I've done and the beliefs that I have, is just like, my kids are not going to be little forever. And so I got to be able to enjoy that time I'm not going to be young forever. Eventually I'm going to be 60 and, creaky back and rickety knees. And I got to enjoy it now while I can. So that's a big motivator for most people.
Yeah, the Facebook memories do it for me, man. That's a slap in the face of how young your kids, or how quickly your kids grow. It's like, hey, this was 4 years ago. I'm like, no way, dude. That was like 3 weeks ago. How the heck did they? Dude, I got a 4-month-old at home. I saw a 2-week-old baby the other day, and I was like, oh my God, dude, that was 3.5 months ago for me. Like, dude, this guy's a monster in my house. And 3.5 months ago, he was the size of my hand. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
I mean, I kind of got, kind of the wiggles, the chills when I heard Keith say his son's considering getting into the fire service. Wait a second. How old is your son? What are you doing?
I know.
You putting a 13-year-old in the fire service?
Yeah, 18. Coming up on 18.
Holy smokes.
He goes fast.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, people ask me about fire service career, like 26 years, 28 years. Well, it'd be 28, but like, did that go super fast? I'm like, no. Didn't go fast at all. It was super slow. But kids getting to 18, I'm like, that went fast.
Yeah,
Not
Yeah,
wild.
that goes fast.
It's
for
wild.
sure.
Yeah.
All right, buddies. Well, we got an hour knocked out. I don't want to be wasting anybody's time tonight, but good first episode. Thanks for joining me. So we'll go ahead.
It's good to work out the bugs.
Yeah, we're going to get Keith a microphone for sure, and I'm calling Comcast for him tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, Mike, I don't know if you've known it, but you've been blurry like the entire time. So
Has it really?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that sucks. Maybe my Wi-Fi is terrible. On my screen, it looks great.
I don't know. It blurs out all the pimples on your face, so it doesn't matter. You can't even
Oh,
see it.
there, see? That's set up. That was on
So young.
purpose. That's called AI.
So young.
Nice.
So the last thing, if anybody is listening here at the end, we just wanted to share the Physicians Financial Summit coming up March 2024. So basically what we're going to be doing is we kind of share the general knowledge here on these calls. We share the general knowledge, we post online and stuff. And the purpose of this Physicians Financial Summit is to really take knowledge and learn how to apply it. All the knowledge is available on the internet. We try to take that knowledge and share it, and break it down so you guys can understand it better. But really, the ability to take knowledge and implement it in your real life, that's where the magic happens. I could learn to do anything, but if I can't actually apply it in my real life, it does no good. So the Physicians Financial Summit, that's the purpose of it. We're breaking down very specific advanced strategies for how to cut taxes, how to plan for retirement, how to avoid the retirement myth, be more like Dr. John, who transitioned out of being a physician and into just less work rather than a cutoff day of retirement. But we're going over all these details here at this event and showing exactly how you apply it to your life and your situation so you can set your family up for financial freedom and, most importantly, time freedom. So that's the last thing we want to touch on here. I don't have anything else. You guys got anything else? Otherwise, we'll go ahead and close it out.
Nope.
That's it. Do it.
Sign her off.
All righty. We'll see you guys.